All right. Hello, everybody. We have an awesome conversation coming up with Natalie. She is at the Balance Projector on Instagram, a beautiful 6'2" splenic projector, and we are here to just chat. We've already been chatting for quite a while, so
We have.
we're gonna unpack some stuff. But hello, Natalie.
Hi, thank you for having me. Again, it's been like a year
I
since our
know.
last conversation.
Yes, and
It
I'm
was
just so
last February.
grateful. I'm grateful that you made the time to chat with me again today. And I had so much fun with our last one. And then I remember, I don't remember exactly why I was looking back through my messages, and then it hit me. I'm like, how has it been a year? This year flew by.
I know. We were all like really in the thick of it last year, and now I'm like, wait, that it's gone.
Right.
I don't know how that quite happened. All of a sudden, it was just like, and now this year, I'm like, oh, it's April. I was gonna say it's March. It's actually April now. So I don't know what's happening. Time is an illusion. So
Time is how are you feeling with this Aries new moon?
I'm actually, my moon is in Aries.
Okay.
My natal moon. So I always love when there's a little Aries action because I'm quite hyped up on it. I'm mostly Capricorn, but I do have my Aries moon. So I'm feeling good. Also, all the transits today, I'm an emotional generator today, or maybe a manifesting generator. Yeah, still have my wide open heart, and yeah, everything else is defined. So I'm kind of riding this weird energy wave that we've got going on. I was gonna take a nap this afternoon, and I was like, wait, why am I not tired? So I looked at it and I was like, oh, because I'm a fully defined sacral being. Got it. Okay. Don't need to nap.
I think that makes sense. That makes sense. I hadn't checked the transits today, so I had to peek in on it real quick. I actually have a defined heart today, so that's pretty fun.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Ooh, that always throws me for a loop when I get that.
It's an interesting energy for sure. So you have the wide open heart. How do you react when you're around a defined heart person? Like, have you started picking up on that energetic?
Yeah. So my moon is in gate 25,
Okay.
0.5, and my brother has the 51. So, and there's like a very competitive energy that comes out when it's the full channel. So yeah, plus he's a pure generator. He's also a 6'2". So yeah, it's interesting being around us. I also try really hard to keep up with him, and it does not work. It's a 30-year in the works lesson, but
Well, okay. So
I got there eventually.
Yeah. That 6th line is starting to move to the roof. So
oh yeah.
You're integrating now. So it's fine. Okay, I have to say though, I see these people make jokes on Instagram about their 6th line. They're like, oh, back when I was a 3rd line and made all the mistakes, ha ha ha. And I'm like, I'm a 3rd line for life. Like, stop acting. Like, I get that whole.
Honestly, I have to. I used to be one of them, and I still do it because the 3rd line lives within the 6th line.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not quite the same. We also don't have your Teflon exterior. So I still 3rd line it, but now that I'm on the roof, I'm just like, is it worth it? Is it worth the 3rd line experience? And I only do it if it is. So
okay, so do you have a little more of it? I guess a rooftop perspective of it then, like you can kind of tell it's a 3rd line thing before you're doing it, whereas me, I'm like stumble on the ground, I'm like, oh right, okay.
Interesting. I think I can sort of, if I can't see it beforehand, at least when I'm in the middle of it, I'm just like, oh, okay, it's a 3rd line thing, got it, okay. And then I'm just like, I give myself a bit more grace because I'm like, we're just 3rd lining it, we're just figuring it out. But so I certainly get in my head about it still, and I'll just like have a little mental trip about it all, but eventually my roof self goes like, chill. Just chill out, it's fine, it's all good.
Yeah, it's interesting to me, that whole Teflon aura thing with the 3rd line as well, because they'll talk about that. I don't know if it's because I'm a mental projector with all the openness, part of me is like, I don't know if I have that Teflon. Like, I would really love to have a 2-line for a little bit and just kind of cruise, not have to learn everything the hard way. That'd be great.
I have to say, I really love my 2-line. I have a 2nd-line body, and it's nice. Sometimes it's a little frustrating because I'm just like, what's happening? I don't know what's happening. Plus my spleen, I have one defined gait, the 18 to 58, and it's undefined, or sorry, not undefined, unconscious. So it's my body. So I don't even have a conscious connection to my spleen, but I have a conscious connection to my throat to G center. Okay. So I joke that I'm a self-projected projector because I actually have a much stronger relationship with my spleen, with my G center, and like talking things out. I'll just walk around my house and like talk out loud to myself and like talk through things. And I feel like really strong directional pull to certain places, or like my body will say like turn right now or something like that. That I've only just recently started to figure out with the help of, I was in a splenic authority class with Sam Zagar, and she was like, yeah, you definitely identify as a self-projected projector. I was like, yes. I joke that I am one because I'm like, my spleen, I don't know. It's just, hanging out. Like
just there unconsciously.
It's just there. I don't know. It's that whole like form principle. It's just gonna happen. My body's gonna take me there.
Okay, that's so interesting. So have you started to be able to connect to it a little more? How do you relate to the spleen then?
It's a little difficult. I also feel a little strange because I only have one defined gate, which is part of my 5818 channel. So it's a little bit, it's very pressurized there. I also have the 48 would bridge my narrow split. So I'm a split definition. And if I had this, I have the 16. If I had the 48, I would be single definition. So the 48 represents fear of inadequacy. Yeah. And I'm like, woo, that's me. And then I also have my 18, which is fear of authority, which is sort of like somebody else is better, somebody else can do it better, Right. And I'm just like, oh, that's just my entire shadow put into 2 little old gates. Okay, cool. So yeah, that's probably, I feel that the strongest. I also get super pulled into my solar plexus, which is undefined, obviously. I have the 6.4, which reaches out toward the sacral. But I really like to have time to mull over my decisions. But as a splenic being, I'm here to be instantaneous. So I find myself getting pulled into the solar plexus to be like, let's like loop around this a few times and like see different perspectives. I'm like, that's not what I'm here for. I do not have that emotional depth, and that's okay. Yeah. So yeah, it's trial and erroring still. So my 18 is 18.2. It's my conscious sun. Okay. So not only is it, or unconscious sun, sorry. So not only is it unconscious, it's also line 2. So it's the natural. So you're just like completely oblivious to anything that it has to say or do. It's literally just form principle that it comes out in. So yeah, it's a work in progress. I'm just trying to like trust my spleen, trust the instantaneous nature of, like today, like you messaged me yesterday and I was like, oh, we should do Thursday so I can give myself more time. And then today I was like, no, I'm actually into it. Let's do this today. Kind of like pulled you into it with my spleen a little bit there.
It was perfect though. It's what I needed.
So I mean, it's working out, I think. But yeah, it's I'm also starting to learn that I still think of my spleen like it's the sacral center. I like throw it questions and try and get a response, but that's not how it works. It's in the moment. Is this person right? Is this restaurant right? Is this house right? Is this food right? It's going to tell me then and there, no. Because to be honest, I've never heard a yes. I've heard you should call this person. no, turn here. I've never heard it. Yeah, this is great. You know, we get really looped into the generator game of like what lights you up kind of deal.
Right.
But I mean, they can get no's too, obviously. You know, there's just the whole like, you know, frequency, kind of thing. But yeah, the spleen doesn't work that way. Spleen's just like, no, but only when it wants to say it. So I'm like trying to like remember, like, okay, I don't have to have a splenic hit or no or anything. It's not a response, but a response to anything. It doesn't, I can't have one every day. Maybe it's only, you know, once a week that I get it. And maybe that'll get stronger over time. But I'm trying to remember that it doesn't necessarily have to have a say in every little decision of my day.
Okay.
You know,
yeah.
Which I think we read a lot about generators, and I for sure tried to be a generator for the entirety of my life and up until 2 years ago when I found human design. And I think, yeah, the sacral is very much, you ask it a question, it gives you a response. It's that simple. But the spleen, I can ask it a question that's not its game. It's like, that's fun. You can have your mind answer that, but that I don't need to answer that right now. That's like a future question. That's not, give me some danger and I'll tell you what to do.
So
it's an IRL kind of girl.
It's funny the way you describe it just now. I'm getting this mental picture of like the sacral is like a dog and the spleen is like a cat.
Yeah. No, totally. That's like a really good way of.
Yeah, because I'm just seeing this cat. I mean, you know, you can ask them to do something and they're like, no.
Side eye.
Right. I do not care what you want.
Like, sorry, was that actually for me? Or are you just trying to project your wish of a sacral on me? That's not, sorry, we don't respond. It's not our game. It's not what we're here for.
Projections. Okay. This is good though, because I'm always so curious about splenic beings' experience with their spleen. I just find it very fascinating. And I think that's one that I'm always extra cautious about in a reading if someone's splenic authority, where it's like all my one line and fear motivation, I feel like I can read about it as much as I want. But it's so nuanced. And so I asked like anybody who's splenic authority, like, tell me about how it shows up for you.
Yeah, it's interesting. And it's very, like you said, it's very nuanced. It's so particular. I think the biggest thing for me has just been learning and reminding myself on like a daily, if not hourly basis, it doesn't respond. That is not what it's here for. So you cannot try and get it to respond. It's gonna come out when your life is in danger, right? The spleen is here to protect you, to keep you safe. So me being like, hey, do we want teriyaki chicken for dinner tonight? The spleen's like, I don't care what you eat. Put something that's poison in front of me, then like, yeah, I'm gonna be like, don't eat this. I'm not gonna choose your dinner for you. You know, it's funny. And I tried to do that for like the first few years up until like my shattering in November, when I was like, oh, I get it. now I see what you mean. Okay.
Right. Okay. So yes, can we talk a little more about this shattering?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so curious. Well, obviously, that's funny. Like, your motivation, my only channel is 1156. So obviously I'm curious about everything. So I remember reading your post before the transference and distraction. Was that around that time or was that processing after?
I think it was, honestly, the shattering happened in November of 2021. It's now April 22 for those of you listening in the future. And I had posted something about closed taste on my Instagram, and I was just super bitter. And then I posted it, And I just closed my Instagram. I was just like, okay, it's out there. I'm going to come back later or tomorrow or never. I don't know. And I opened the app later and I was just like flooded with the kindest words, messages. People were supporting my work with my buy me a coffee link. I was like floored. I was like, oh, okay. So showing up in your bitterness can be good. Okay. My undefined solar plexus is like, hide this as much as possible. Do not let people know that you're bitter. But like, that's when I was like, oh, my bitterness isn't something that you're supposed to run away from or hide from or avoid. It's not pleasant to show up as a bitter person. It's not nice for us. And I'm just so aware of the other person and their reaction, sometimes physical. I can see them kind of like, oh, this is hard to watch a bitter person, like it's hard to watch somebody else when they're in it and you can feel it, it's like gritty. And I realized that showing up bitter is actually the way that I found my way to the shattering. Because I was like, I don't have to hide from it. That is the biggest road sign, red flag, whatever you want, that shows me exactly what my truth is. When you just keep going towards bitterness and you're ignoring the fact that it's bitterness and you're like, I just have to keep doing it and eventually it's going to go away. No, that's why bitterness is there. Bitterness is like, turn around, take the U-turn when possible, because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're not living, as you're designed to, right? Mechanically speaking. And that's when I was like, oh, I get it. Okay. My bad. Sorry. Like, apologize to my body. I'm like, sorry, my mind. I'm sorry, you guys. I got a little crazy there for a minute, but I figured it out. Okay. So it's been pretty good since then. Yeah. I mean, I really took kind of like a hard left or right or whatever direction I went, U-turn, I don't know. And I like stopped doing readings and I just fully started studying source material, because I was like, oh, I actually understand human design now, that I'm like, reading the textbooks, which are so readily available on the internet. When I came in to human design, there was a lot of kind of really negative talk about source material and Jovian and IHDS, which is International Human Design School. And it was, all this talk about a paywall and how unfair it was. And I mean, it painted a very bad picture. And somebody new in the industry, I think you probably remember it too. When you're starting out, you're like, well, I guess they're terrible people. We shouldn't, involve ourselves. I don't know.
I know, because
I'm fear motivation. I don't know what I'm doing here.
Right?
I'm gonna walk that path first. Are you kidding me? No thanks. Cut two, they're actually wonderful resources to actually learn human design. You can buy the textbooks online. You can buy the course material for, the people who are enrolled in the professional school. You can buy the textbooks online. They're a little pricey, but I mean, when you actually add them all up, it's nothing compared to the couple $1,000s I spent on trainings of people who were not certified. Not that there's anything wrong with them, but there's a very different feeling with source material. When I read that now, I'm like,
yes.
Oh.
Oh my gosh, I had the same experience, because I had a bit of a shattering myself around November and I crashed and burned. And then it was bad. I've been diving more into source material as well. And I keep looking back to these people that I trusted in the beginning. And I'm like, oh, did they even read this? Did they go here? Because it doesn't seem it's deeper.
It is. And I don't, there's a lot of talk about like the frequency that is carried with Ra's teachings, that it actually, impacts you on a cellular level. When we change the words, right? It's a language. It's like going into French class and saying like, you don't like the word for X, so you're just going to change it. You can't do that. That's the meaning of the word changes when you do that.
And I know I had a little bit of a moment that I know a lot of people have when they first get into human design. You know, I'm the 1-3, so it's like, oh, I'm the martyr, and I'm single definition. I have no authority. Like there's just nothing. And kind of went spiral just a little bit. And I hear people do that now, especially 3-5s, right? They're like, I'm the martyr heretic. What in the world? So for me, I just usually explain who Ra was. I'm like, yo, he was a manifester, an ego manifester with gate 51.
I was going to say, with gate 51.
Right. Like he's meant to shock you into awakeness. This isn't like me. I'd be like, well, let's gently flow through because that's who I am, but not him. So let's just honor what it is and don't take it personally. So how do you usually talk people through that if they're having a moment with the wording?
You know, I used to actually, I fully called myself out and I was like, oops, I've been in pop HD for a while, guys, sorry. So I used to actually, you know, walk people through with softer explanations. Like I fully own up to it. And I don't necessarily think that I said anything that was wrong or did anything that was, you know, made these people walk away from a reading that wasn't true. But in a way, it did do them a disservice because there's just not a level of honesty and a level of transformation that can happen when you use the correct terminology and you use the language, because it is a system, it's a science. And if you don't use it the way that it is right now, the way that it was intended to be used, it can't have the same level of cellular transformation. And that's what we're here for, right? We're here to learn who we are. And look, we're going around talking about bitterness. I don't want to say that I'm a bitter person, and I'm not a lot of the time, but that's there. And I can't say, oh, I'm a perfectly happy person every single day of my life. Are you kidding me? No, I've got the A1. I get my melancholy and, you know, it gets bad sometimes, but I can't say, oh, we just don't talk about that part because it's not very nice. You know, it's not super fun and fluffy and pink. Like, I like fluffy, fun, pink things, but like my spleen's probably like black. I mean, it's not, it's like Pluto or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not.
Well, I mean, life isn't super fluffy. It's just not. And we've got to learn how to work through the dark side and the shadow and to really love that aspect too. It's just there to guide us. It's part of the whole experience.
That's what I realized, in that bitterness post. So I wrote my closed taste post, which led to my shattering. And then I was like, oh, bitterness. Yeah, that's like, I love bitterness. I don't like feeling it. But I love it because it shows me immediately when I'm not being myself. I'm in transference. I'm distracted. I'm trying to live as a sacral being. I'm trying to avoid confrontation from my solar plexus. I'm trying to keep up with my, brother who has his defined heart center. You know, it runs me ragged. And bitterness is just like a quick little slap in the face. It's like, hey, not your trip. Chill.
Right?
I love it.
Not your trip.
Not my trip, like you're not here. I'll get really stuck in my head.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's just like a quick little, hey, it's not your trip.
Yeah.
You don't like you're feeling super bitter right now. Why are you feeling bitter? It's your truth. It's just hitting you in the face with your truth. That's not who you are. That's not who you're here to be.
It's just a guide. Like you said, it's just helping you see what's happening in front of you. Because that's how I've experienced it too. But I laugh, like when I found out about the bitterness, I think about stuff from before and I'm like, oh yeah. I was in the wrong place for a long time and I was really bitter. That must have been fun for everybody else.
I know, it is funny when you look back and you're like, I see it now. That was the bitterness coming through. Okay, got it. My bad.
Yeah.
Oops. Yeah.
But when you were talking about how you get stuck in your head a lot, I mean, I can relate to that as a mental projector, my mind's the only thing I really have access to. But with you, you have both undefined up there, open, or they're both undefined?
They're both undefined. I have some gates, which I'm honestly not remembering right now. So,
I mean, gosh, I'm judging you harshly. You don't.
I know I have 17. I know that because that's my unconscious earth.
Okay, yeah.
But that's.
So I was just wondering how that feels for you, because you've got them both undefined. You have both right arrows. So I feel like that's just so much. It feels like a sea, like you could get lost in it that way. I'm curious how getting lost in your head feels like for undefined crown and mind with the right arrows. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it's an interesting combination because the right mind is pretty much not even pulled, just sort of like taken, wherever it wants to wander. And then the undefined head and ajna, you're just sort of like, yeah, let's just go diving in this ocean. And like, it can get a little intense. I think for me, I just, it's when I'm like trying to go to sleep and I find myself like 20 minutes into thinking of some scenario that will never ever happen, that I'm like, okay, it's not my trip. I got lost. I fell asleep in the play for a minute. I got lost in there, but it's all right. Let's just, okay, bring it back. I mean, the part of my design is that my brain is meant to just kind of wander. I'm meant to just think aimlessly. It's when it starts to become something that I find my body having a stressful reaction to, because there's something that I'm thinking about. I'm supposed to do something. I'm projecting onto somebody else their projection, my perceived projections from them onto me. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
And then I just like roll it around and then I'm like, stop, just stop. It's not like, I think I heard someone talk one time. They said something like, essentially it's like very narcissistic to think everything is about you.
Right.
And it is. I mean, the person that I could be thinking is projecting all of these things onto me is like a business owner, a mom. She probably has pets, got a husband, she's cooked dinner. You think that she's sitting around like for 4 hours, just like bad mouthing you of all the people in the world in her life? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this woman does not think about you. She sent you an email to do something. That's it. That's the extent of it.
Isn't that so fascinating? Yes, one little thing happens, and then for me, I feel like it's undefined solar plexus, and it's like, oh no,
yeah,
they hate you, and you did everything wrong, and it like goes off on this crazy tangent.
Yeah, it's really, I do enjoy now. I've gotten to a point. I'm still in a very mental trip with my experiment. It's still very much a mental experiment for me, like understanding the different aspects of my design and how it works. But I do kind of have fun now watching it all play out, where like, I get something that then my like an email, my ajna is like, why don't you know the answers to this yet? Like, you're useless. And then my heart's like, well, you have to do it to prove it. And then my sacral's like, yeah, why aren't you working already? You should just work till 9 o'clock tonight to prove to her that you know what you're doing. And my solar plexus is like, yeah, definitely don't go back and ask questions like my fear motivation needs me to do, or wants me, I shouldn't say needs. Because like that's gonna, upset them and make them think that you don't know. It's like, it just goes rampant. And I'm like, wow, I just sat here for 3 seconds and watched every single, it's like a body scan. Every single undefined center just screamed at me. Meanwhile, my spleen's just chilling, like laying back. Like, we don't have anything to talk about right now. You're fine. There's no actual danger here. We don't even have a part in this conversation. And we're the authority, but like, we're just gonna sit back and not say anything because it's all nonsense.
Yeah, you're fine. Yeah. Again, I'm picturing a cat like chilling. Yeah. No, totally. I relate to that, and I've had similar experiences. It's funny because just the other day I was noticing this with something that popped up that I had a very strong bodily reaction to, and then I just observed it. It's like, this is really cool. I'm just gonna flow with it. And honestly,
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what it was. So that's pretty exciting. But there have been times where I'm feeling overwhelmed. And so I listen. It's like, oh, they're all yelling at the same time. No, no wonder I'm stressed.
Yep.
Again, I can think back in the past and realize, like that would just throw me into transference. I would be in need, like, oh, I
Mm-hmm.
do all these things to survive,
Yep.
right? Do
Yep.
you feel that way? So yeah, the fear motivation there.
Yeah. I have come to really love my fear motivation. And as with everything in my design, my favorite part is when I can come through the whole mental game, the whole thing, watch it all play out, and then be like, oh yeah, this is what I've always done. This is how I've literally been since I have memories of me being in kindergarten acting this way. Like, it's just who I've always been. I just had to remember and have the words to be like, yes, this is how I'm designed to live and be and decide and be motivated. So yeah, no, fear motivation. Um, we're old friends. I've found actually really interestingly this week. So I started working again at a real, company. I tried to make human design my own thing, and it was not sustainable monetarily. So I was living off my savings. It was fine, but we got to a point where my survival view was like, but money.
Right.
We need money to survive. So, okay, got a job. So I'm training this woman to use a program, and my fear motivation is just perfectly at ease. Someone's like, hey, can you show her how to do this? And I'm like, my heart is not going to promise anything. It says that shouldn't be a problem. Let me double check and I'll get back to you. I then take myself through the steps of doing it myself. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm capable of doing this. I'm now capable of showing this other woman how to do it. So yes, I can respond and say, yep, this is totally fine. Send, the requests and I'll show her how to do this. And then I show her how to do it. And my survival view, I think, plays a part because it's like, what are the essential steps that I need to lay out for her and myself so we are both on the same page, so she can easily follow my instructions and she can then move on and do this by herself. So she doesn't have to come to me every single time. Those people who are like, yeah, you click on this and then you go to this button, you do the drop down, you click the third one.
Yes.
And they just say it over the phone really fast. And then you're like, wait, sorry, can you just, so could you email it? There's screenshots and like, can we do a video chat so like I can watch you physically do it? Like I do all of that with this woman that I'm training because I'm like, I know my right mind and brain like to watch. And I also like to just have like a PDF of instructions off to the side so I don't have to keep going back to my boss being like, can you show me again? Can you show me again?
Yes.
So yeah, it's been really interesting watching my fear motivation is just like, yeah, like I ask the questions I need. I go through it by myself to make sure that I know what I'm doing. And then I'm like, do I have questions? Maybe. Yeah. Send them. Like before I found human design, I had the worst anxiety because I never asked questions. If I didn't know something, I was just like, you're an idiot. You need to figure this out by yourself to prove you can do something, prove my wide open heart. And yeah, it was just miserable. I hated the job. I hated daily life. I had anxiety. I had panic attacks all the time.
Oh, wow.
And now I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. So let's just shoot off an email and be like, hey, I don't feel fully comfortable with this. Can you please answer these questions so that I can move forward? And like now, even if it means there's a 7-hour delay between me just doing it and guessing and getting some work done, I'd rather email them my questions so that they can confirm. Or, half the time they're like, oh yeah, I forgot to mention that. So thanks for asking. I'm like, imagine if I just went and did it and I would have done it wrong. I would have been incorrect. And then my mind would have been like, see, told you, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah. Everything, all the not self voices would pop up. Like we knew it.
Yep. So Yeah, fear motivation, I've become very good friends with, because I'm like, there's nothing wrong with asking questions. Like, you should be asking questions. Like, I'm not here to pretend that I know everything about everything, you know? So, especially human design. I get nervous around human design, because I again imagine that all these people are projecting onto me. I do have the second line, but that they're projecting onto me that I have to know everything, that I have to know the specific, answers, the perfect responses. And it's really, again, my splenic gates, the bridge, which is fear of inadequacy, ouch. And my 18, which is fear of authority, somebody else can do it better. Those two keep me really small. So especially in human design, I've pretty much, I'm still kind of taking, time off. I've since November haven't really done anything, because I think I just need to rebuild that. I don't know if it's confidence or if I just need to wait out my fear motivation, to get to the point where I feel like I have a sturdy enough foundation to act as an outer authority, which even saying outer authority feels weird, but I mean it in the mechanical sense of like,
right, like you're a projector, you're meant to be an outer authority. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Definitely not like a end all be all to human design, but
Yeah, well, there's so many layers to human design, and I can relate to that, being afraid with all my mechanics. I feel like I have so many that shadows. I have the gate 48 and 3 placements, by the way, so that's probably why we
well, that's probably why we're doing this again.
Yes.
It's our mechanic monopoles doing the work for us.
Exactly. You gotta trust it. Just gotta trust it.
I love that. That's so funny.
But I started to realize, like, there's so many layers, and then I see, I just observe a lot, and I watch these other readers, and I realize everybody kind of gets pulled into their own little nuance of the system. And I see people who are studying source material, but the like Teo is really great at the incarnation crosses, and those
oh my gosh, I know,
confuse me, and then
it's so funny that you say that. I was literally gonna look to book with him today. An incarnation cross reading. And I was like, wait a little bit longer. But anyways, I interrupted you, sorry.
That's been in the back of my mind for a while too, because I have the right angle cross of rulership. That was another one that tripped me up in the beginning. I'm like, am I supposed to be like a ruler? Like, and I have gate 26, the gate of the salesman. I'm like, this thing doesn't know me at all. I'm a terrible salesperson. But I've started to decondition and understand most of it. But yeah, so that's what eased my not self of all that. Because again, fear motivation, one line, defined mind, gate 48, like there's so much, 7 undefined centers. There's so much that's afraid of being wrong. And that's been my whole life. But now I realize I'm here to process things in my way with my defined mind and my gate 47. And so like that's literally it. I can't do it wrong. I just got to keep processing how I feel led to process. And that's eased so much anxiety.
Yeah, I was watching or listening rather to Ra's the 4 transformations lectures today, and the view perspective, which is the one of the variable, there's the 4 arrows at the top of your chart. It's called variable, and it's the on the design side, which is the right hand side, so it's the one you're conscious of. Just trying to lay it out for the person at home. He's like, what is she talking about? Anyway, so yes, so he was talking about it, and he's like, in addition to your entire body graph, the perspective, your view is entirely unique. Even if like we share the same view or perspective, we are going to see it in a completely different and unique way, just based on everything else in our design. What is the sense? What, how are the other variable placements, facing on what tonal,
Exactly. And like, what if you have different environment. So you're seeing that perspective from a different place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's what I love about it too.
And you're a mental projector. I'm splenic, you know?
Right. And so, yeah, we have so much similar in our charts, but then so much so different too.
Mm-hmm.
Fun. It's so fun. Do you get the question? People ask me when they're pretty new, they're like, okay, I have this thing. Is that normal? Like, I have all these, whatever. Is that normal? And I always say, there's no such thing as normal. That's the beauty of this. It's just,
it's just unique, because normal is weird and weird is normal.
Mm-hmm.
Because in human design, normal means, I mean, in my opinion, that you're conditioned to the homogenized world. Exactly. You're normal. You're like everybody else. You do a normal job. You get a normal salary. You live in a normal apartment.
Mm-hmm.
So that just means you're, you know, homogenized, you know, in the rat race or whatever. Now you can have a job and a salary and an apartment and not be homogenized. You know, not to say like you should be living in a van, you know,
right,
like,
right.
you know, in a national park or something, you know, to be completely not homogenized. Like we still live in a, you know, a matrixy world where like, you know, there are certain conditions of being a human on this plane, is that you know, you have to make money.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the people in the world have to make money, you know, in order to afford a house and health insurance and food and pay their bills and pay their taxes. Like those are normal things that everybody has to do. Even how, you know, differentiated that we are, you know, we still all have to do some things the same. And I think it's, I got to a point personally where I realized that my experiment only existed within the confines of a bubble that I had created. Where, yeah, which is a bit dangerous, where, you know, you don't, it's, I didn't even realize it until my not self-projection authority figured it out for me. I was like talking out loud and I was like, I have this weird preconceived notion that I cannot be a projector in the quote unquote normal world. Like, can't be a projector and have a job, can't be a projector and, you know, make money or pay rent or whatever it is. And that's dangerous, because the whole point of human design is just to be who you are. And that means that you can be a paralegal and a splenic projector. It's not an if and or kind of situation, you know, it's like,
right,
it's this and that. You are a projector and you can do all of these other things in order to make a life for yourself. And I think I got on a very sticky path where I didn't think that I could actually live as a projector unless I was, you know, being a human design reader and having a successful human design business and, you know, all of this stuff. I didn't think, oh, I can work at a company and be a projector and wait for invitations, which is what I do. I still, you know, pretend I'm a sacral being sometimes and work too much and insert my opinions places. Although I do have 17 and 18, so that sort of comes with the territory. But sometimes, I mean, for the most part, they go over well because people, you know me, and it's, my opinions are being shared within a situation that I've already been invited into most of the time. So, I mean, even just the past month, I've been experimenting with just like being a projector, like IRL, so to speak, like, you know, like taking it to like the streets, like for real, I'm doing this out here, you know, it's not in the bubble as I was before. Like I had created a bubble, and maybe that's fear motivation, I don't know, to build up this foundation of knowledge so that I could then actually take it to my real life. I don't know.
Yeah, I can relate to that with that fear motivation for sure. Especially with all of your undefined up here. It's like, yeah, let's find that certainty in the depths of the ocean. Like, you're not gonna find it
you're not gonna find it out there. I am not here to be certain.
Okay, so I love how you're bringing it into your real life in corporate America, being your projected self. Gosh, a question was in my head and then it just left though.
It's okay. It'll come back.
Oh, so the invitation piece,
Yeah.
like how have you come to understand the recognition and invitation piece of being a projector?
So I'm glad you brought this up because I know that there's a lot of talk. I don't know if it's specifically in the projector community, probably because that's, our strategy, but there's a lot of talk about what an invitation or recognition is or isn't.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, I recognize you for the incredible job that you've been doing. No, it feels incredible when my colleague emails me and she's like, oh my God, Natalie, the email that you put together looks insane. Thank you so much. That is recognition for me. That, oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
Very excited about that. It makes you feel good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's an email that I made from my job. Like 6 weeks ago, I would have been like, no. That's not something that would like light me up. That would like be recognition. But it is a feeling that you get inside. It's people who recognize you not only for just like, doing a good job at something, but like they're recognizing you for the uniqueness that you are bringing to whatever the situation is, whether it's your perspective, whether it's your actual work, their recognition is of your gifts. Now, they're probably not going to be like, wow, Natalie, you're so gifted at doing this. That's kind of a weird thing to say, like, especially in like corporate America, which is fine. But like, someone saying like, you did an incredible job on this, or like, oh my gosh, this looks so good, I can never do this, or it can come in a million ways. And I notice maybe more so because I'm aware of the actual definition that I carry. I only have 2 channels, which is the 8-1, the gate of inspiration, and the 1858, which is the the channel and the channel of judgment. So that's what I've got. And I understand, what the books say. I understand how they feel for me. And when somebody who has no clue what human design is, and they say something to you that recognizes your natural ability to seek out logical patterns and organizational skills, like, or I don't know, the unique insight that I bring to a situation where I'm helping to build a structure in the background to ensure that we don't get screwed 6 months from now because we didn't have this stuff prepared. That's my survival and, view and fear motivation. I'm figuring out what we need to know, what's important for us. It's like stuff like that, which is very like non-woo-woo, non-human design. But when somebody can recognize that in you and you're like, yeah, that's my design. Like, I don't have to say that to them. They're seeing it. They're witnessing it in action in whatever the situation may be, whether it's like planning a party or creating, an e-blast for work. That's, I think, the recognition that hits deep. And the invitation is super simple. I mean, I don't know how many times I've been invited already being in this job for, I think it's been 4 weeks. And there's so many little just invitations that I get sent, like just a super simple little chat. Like, hey, can you watch this and give me your insight? And it's like, a draft for a webinar that they're going to do. Or, can you help me create some email content or whatever it is, whether it's, can you help me, or you seem like you would know this, or, it doesn't have to be like, I'm inviting you to do this,
Right.
Like, you're probably not going to hear that phrase. And if you do, it would be a little strange. You'd be sort of like, sure, that's kind of if you weren't in human design and somebody came up to you and was like, I want to invite you to write an e-blast for me. You're like, okay.
Are you okay?
Like, am I like joining a seance? I don't know what's going on. This is strange. Like, you don't hear invite outside of the context of like event, but like,
Yes.
after I wrote my transference post, I remember that Sam Zagar commented and said, I would be really interested to see what invitations you just opened up yourself to. And immediately my mind's like, ooh, human design readings. And actually what happened was the next day I was on a phone call with my mom, and I work for my family, and she invited me to come back to work. And I had been thinking in my head, like, I think that I want to go back to work for them, but I want to do this instead of this, and I don't want to do this. And it's a very unique situation that not necessarily many people can find, but I know that it's not just sort of like BS, because I've been away from my family's company for 18 months, and it was to the point where I couldn't have them. If they talked about the business, I would just leave the room. I just couldn't hear it. I didn't want anything to do with it. And my mom knew this, and she knew my boundary. My line 2 boundary was very firm. And it was like, I don't know. I had opened myself up to it. And there was some sort of, I don't know, weird energetic sense that she got. I don't know what it was, but she just said, we really need your help. And I think, you could be really good doing something along this, these lines or whatever it was. But it wasn't like a formal invitation. Like, I would like to invite you to come back and work with us. It was just like, we need your help. If that's not recognition for a projector, I don't know what is. Like saying, especially because like I knew that they needed my help all this time, and I didn't let myself help them because I knew that I would have just gotten looped back in. But this was very different, It wasn't like, I don't know, you're going to do this for us because you're family. It was like a genuine, I think we need you in this capacity, and I think you could be really good in that position. It was very interesting how it happened, and so quickly. I mean, it was crazy how quickly it, like, so many things changed after I posted that. It was like I really actually did open something up that just I don't know.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Wow. So, okay, I'm processing, because it is really fascinating how energetics work behind the scenes, and how we interact with it. But okay, so you wrote this post, you really identified that you were in transference and distraction, you honored it, like put it out there, and then so much shifted for you.
I mean, one of the other invitations that I got, I feel like anybody who follows my content will know this, and I feel like a broken record, but I'm trying to move to Scotland. And I was supposed to move in January. And I'm moving with my dog, and he's a medium-sized dog. He would have to go underneath the plane if I flew, which is why I don't want to fly.
Ooh.
And yes, and last October, I had a little splenic ping, whatever it was, that just said you should call them. And well, it probably wasn't those words because my spleen doesn't say that, but it was like, call them. And I knew who them was. So I called this cruise line and they take pets. And I was like, do you have any cancellations? Like the last time I asked that before COVID, they literally laughed at me on the phone. And he was like, let me check. Oh yeah, we just had one. Like, do you want it? And I was like, oh my God, yes. Turns out there was some thing they had to like double check with the, kennel master who was out for the weekend. So they had to get back to me. It was like kind of an invitation situation. Got it. It was all good. Then the Omicron variant hit and it got canceled like 5 days before I was supposed to move. So, yeah. So then they put me on a wait list for the April sailing for Luke, because my dog, because it wasn't guaranteed. All the kennels were already sold for the April sailing, but they were like, we'll put you on a wait list in case something happens. And it was like 2 weeks after that post So I had started working again,
Mm-hmm.
and they emailed me, and they asked me, it was something super vague. They needed some sort of paperwork. So I didn't think anything of it, and I sent it. And then it was like, also, since, because I'm like, I'm a projector, I want to wait when I can for people to reach out to me first. And so I said, by the way, since you've reached out, I've been meaning to tell you, like, my dog he tore his ACL, so he has to get surgery. So we can't travel on the April sailing. And she wrote back and she's like, I'm confused. We just confirmed you. Do you not want it? And I was like, no, this is painful. So then I was like, give me the weekend, because the surgery, he really needs to have this. And I really want to do it here in the States. So then the whole weekend I was like, am I in need? Like, no, I'm not in need by saying no. Like, I'm in need if I say yes, because if I say yes, then I feel like I need to say yes because I'm not going to get this again. The weekend was an intense mental trip, but I said no. I went back on Monday. I was like, look, this is incredible and this is painful for me to write, but I can't travel as planned because he needs the surgery. So I'm like, for weeks, I've been like, oh my God, I made the wrong decision. I was in transference. I need to get the surgery here, blah, 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 blah. And now I'm like, oh, no, that was the right decision. First, because my spleen was like, no. I saw the email. But she was like, wait, we confirmed you. And my spleen was just like, nope, we're not going. It was like, first of all, I listened to my spleen. It's never, if you listen to my spleen, like I know I'm good. Yeah. But also my fear motivation, I've been racking my brain about it, but I'm like, no, I was in the correct motivation because I want to have Luke's surgery here in the States because he has to get it on his other leg too, both of his ACLs. I'm just like, perfect, of course. But I need to have one done here, right? I have a whole support system. My family is here. The vet that we know is here. The surgeon that I know is here. Mm-hmm. I want to have it done here so that when I do get the second one, I know what to expect. I know I already have been through it. I have the past experience with all the people helping me,
Right.
I can move and have the other surgery when I'm, in the UK, because I will know what to expect. And after the surgery, if I'm like, I couldn't do this over there, I have to get it here, then fine, I'll know. But I can't it's so interesting. Your spleen tells you in the moment, but it's not like based on these actions in the next 6 months, this could be a yes. Like there's no there's no small print with the spleen. It's just like, no, there's I'm not giving you any details. It's just a no. And you just have to trust me, honey. That's the spleen. So I'm like, okay. So I guess after surgery, when I relook, I'm gonna, decide then again based on my spleen. What is my spleen saying? How am I being, driven? Am I, how am I motivated? Is it now I feel comfortable getting it over there, or I'm like, no way in hell could I get it in another country with no support system where I'm by myself and I don't know the vet and I don't know the surgeon. Mm-hmm. I do have people who push me into need as well. They're like, ooh, you should really get it done here though. Get them both done. You need to be with the same surgeon because they know the dog. And I'm like, and I just sit there and I'm like, it's transfer. Just push me.
Thank you for
So it's, it's fun.
You've had quite the journey trying to get over there because you were moved before COVID itself came, right?
I was supposed to move in May of 2020. I didn't have any plans. I didn't have anything booked. But I had given 6 months notice at my job the year before. So I was fully prepped. I gave them plenty of time so that we could hire somebody else. We could train them all the whole thing. And then COVID hit and I was just like, I'm still going to go, I'm still going to do it, guys. It'll be fine. I'm, what is it? My 25 is just sort of let's just go for it,
Yeah. The world's not going down. It's no big
deal. I did try. I actually was almost going to book flights September 2020, but the second wave hit, and my aunt and uncle that I would be staying with initially to quarantine were high risk. So they were like, we can't have you.
Oh,
And I was going to fly at that point. So I'm just like, every turn, every time this is being delayed or canceled or whatever, I'm just like, it's fine. Because it was just not the right time. That's
yes,
okay.
I'm so curious now though, like once you finally get over there, because I just
know.
that it'll like all make so much sense once you get there and you're like, oh yeah, okay. But it's
I
been
know. It's been wild. I know. Even, I had family and friends who were like not super on board with it before. And now they're like, it's been like 2 years of you actively trying. It's time for you to go. You need to just go. We don't care about it anymore. Like we have no reservations. Just go and just move there, live your life. It'll be fun. It'll be fine. Like, it's crazy.
I guess that is a good thing. If you've still been actively moving towards it after 2 years, then yeah, how can they argue against it? Like clearly,
right? Yeah. This is definitely my G center pulling me. This isn't just like a random. Because at first I was like, oh, maybe it's like, they got canceled once. Like maybe, this will save me. Like I didn't really want to go, but I'm like, no, I still want to go. There's something that's I don't know, pulling me there. I was born in London, and my whole family, my mom's side, my dad's side, they all live there. Oh, wow. In London and just outside London and Oxford. And curiously, I don't know why, I'm just incredibly drawn to Scotland, to live in Edinburgh. Well, I say curiously, I follow astrocartography.
Oh, yes.
And my Jupiter line, my Jupiter MC, goes almost directly through Edinburgh.
Okay.
Also, curiously, my Pluto IC line goes almost directly through Chicago, where I have lived my entire life.
Interesting. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So
it makes sense.
All sorts of fun.
It makes sense. So I haven't been able to really study astrocartography too much, but I have looked up my chart because I was so curious once I heard about it. And it was weird because I was randomly drawn to Australia for a little bit. Like I just keep thinking about Australia. And then I looked up my astrocartography, and like so many of my lines go through Australia. I've never once been there.
Yeah.
Like, maybe that's what's happening.
It's interesting. I love it. I used to look at astrocartography charts in human design readings just to see like what was going on. And there were so many interesting links. Like people would have their MC line going through another state where they just found someone that they were going to do a training with, or they wanted to work with, or their sun line would be going through this particular city, and like they felt their most like vibrant selves there. And of course you always feel super wonderful when you're on vacation, but like you get a sense of when certain destinations hit you differently. And it's very interesting when you can see that correlate on a map of the world with your natal chart lines going through it. Yeah, I was fascinated. It's probably still one of my favorite things to just even look at for friends when they're like talking about, if their partner is off somewhere in another state, or like they want to travel somewhere, and you just look and they're like, oh yeah, you should definitely go to Bali. You guys would be really good in Bali.
I'm definitely fascinated by it. I'm so curious. I love how we've figured all this stuff out, how humans are really cool sometimes.
I know. Sometimes we come up with good stuff. I thought, I wonder if it's that open head, open mind, just like, hey, life. I wonder what would happen if we made a program that puts your natal chart over a map. Oh my gosh, look at all these lines. That's cool.
Right? Oh, look, it's actually working out. Nice.
Right.
Oh, and you mentioned MC, so I just wanted to say for like anybody who
Oh,
doesn't exactly know what the MC is, can you explain that one a little more?
Yeah, so there's 4 angles. If you look at your natal chart, there's 4 angles. So your AC is your ascendant, which is your rising sign. So if you are like a Scorpio rising, which I am, your rising angle would be where that is. It's like the first angle on the chart. It's at like 9 o'clock, I guess, if you're looking at it like it's a clock. Your IC is the Celli, which represents your home life. Your descendant represents your relationships. So they say if you're looking for an ideal partner, you should look at your descendant lines. Like I'm a Scorpio, so the opposite of Scorpio is Taurus. So I'd probably do really well with a Taurus.
Okay.
And then your MC is, I can't remember what the Latin word for it is, but in English they would say like midheaven, which represents, it's at the top of your chart at like 12 o'clock noon. So it's the complete opposite of the IC. The IC is your home life. So it's, you know, everything that's close to you. The MC is the top of your chart. So it's your career, your public life, yeah, everything sort of like external and internal, if you want to think of it like that. But yeah, so your Jupiter MC would be, so what does Jupiter represent? All things expansion, abundance, luck even, and how it relates to the angle, which MC would be the midheaven. So how it relates to your public life, your career. So yeah, Jupiter MC, sign me up. I was very happy to see that. So yeah, plus, I mean, I just have a very deep pull to go there. And I remember Teo on Instagram stories when he first moved, I think he moved to New Mexico. And he said he just had this really deep pull to move there. And he's like, it made absolutely no sense. I don't know anybody there. I've never lived there, but there is something about like the land that it's just pulling me. And he went and he's like, this is the most incredible decision that I've ever made. And I didn't really make it. It's not a mental decision. I just kind of followed where my body wanted to go. And, you know, I mean, I would be interested to see on like if there is a line that goes through it that is, you know, some like charged energy that pulled him there. And it doesn't necessarily have to correlate. You know, you could be drawn to somewhere and have no lines going through it. But I always find it really fascinating when there is a line, you're just like, oh, it's a little, I don't know, kind of feel that you feel like you almost trust yourself a little bit more because you're like, oh, it's not just me being weird. You're like falling in love with like, you know, Instagram photos or something. It's like, no, this is like a legitimate
thing. Yes. Like, I know I'm really resisting the urge to look at my chart so I can stare at it right now.
We'll have to go through yours. I want to see what you have.
Yes, that would be super fun because I don't have it memorized like at all. I do know I lived in Little Rock for a few years and I have no lines through there. And there's a lot of reasons I loved it, but I was feeling really called to come back home. And then turns out my moon line runs through here. And that made sense because I just needed to be nurtured for a bit. That's what I felt like. I just needed to be nurtured. So it made a lot of sense. But now I'm getting the bug to go somewhere else. But my kids are in high school. So I can't just leave.
Gotta wait for them. Yeah, I get that. You don't want to move around too much.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that, you know, like you felt this, you know, call or draw to be, you know, have some sort of nurturing balm, you know, energy or feeling. And that's sort of that form principle, right? Like your magnetic monopole is going to take you, you know, your magnetic monopole does all the work. I found out that the 2 guys that I was either dating or interested in were projectors, both actually self-projected projectors.
How funny.
And I think one of them had the 59 to my gate 6, which is a very strong connection that you probably just seek each other out. So yeah, been interesting to see, and that was years ago, before I even, knew that I was more than a Capricorn sun. So it was a very, very long time ago. So yeah, it's really interesting to see. I mean, the form principle, like your body just takes you, it just, when you can get out of your head, when you try to stop making the mental decisions and you can just freely be yourself, and your body can tell you what it needs and take you physically where you need to go, like, that's it,
That's where the magic is. So how would you advise someone if they're in the beginning and they want to trust their body, but they're still stuck in their mind and they just don't even understand what trust your body means? Like, what is the first step, you think?
Honestly, the very first step, if you found out about human design and you're like on My Body Graph and you're reading all the little blurbs and you're like trying to piece it together, genuinely get a human design reading, not a pitch to like book with one of us, book with whoever.
Yeah.
It makes the difference. Even now, being in human design, having taught human design to people, walked them through their charts, I still get human design readings. There's so much in human design, you'll get readings forever. But if you're just starting out, get a reading. If you want to start, I guess if you're really like, what does being in my body feel like? I guess I would first look at what your authority actually is, and try and begin to connect with it. Is your emotional center, you really need to, well, I don't want to say need, because that's me just projecting my my transference onto you. You want to get into a place where you can feel comfortable just being yourself. And if that means that you have to lock yourself in the bathroom and just do your thing, do it. I do that. It's great.
Narrow valleys.
narrow valleys, a lot of Capricorn. Yeah. So I would see what your authority is. I can't personally speak to an emotional authority. So I would probably, again, seek out others who you feel you can connect with that have your authority. And there are plenty of people on Instagram now who are giving incredibly high value content.
Yes.
Like incredibly high value content. Whether they're professionally trained in school, they just read the, or listen to lectures, read the text, even, not to push being, source material, but I find that personally that hits in a different way. So, I guess also find out your learning, style. Like, do you like learning source material? Are you drawn to somebody else? Your sacral, I'd probably get really comfortable just like letting your stomach out. Just like, we suck in our body all the time, pretending to like contort ourselves into like, different poses.
Oh yeah.
Just let it out. This is also good for any authority. But because your sacral is literally your gut, like if you're sucking in your gut and you're expecting a good response, like you're probably not going to get it. Just let it out and really start to listen to what natural sounds you make. Like the sacral is very much like about frequency. It's that it's like a yes or it's that low frequency. And maybe you don't make those noises, but maybe you make something similar. Really just like start observing yourself. Human design is very much just about awareness, and eventually the awareness leads to just being, just like sitting back and just being. It's your spleen. Again, find people, on human design that have the spleen defined as their authority. And I've personally been diving into the lymphatic system and how that can affect the connection with the spleen, because the spleen is connected to the lymphatic system. So like moving around that lymphatic fluid in your body, whether it's gua sha, whether it's dry brushing, whether it's abhyanga, doing warm oil body massage, just getting in touch with your body. I think in general, we're very disconnected from our bodies because we just want them to look a certain way or do certain things, or, we're trying to make them something that they may not necessarily be. And how can you trust your authority if you're trying to make your body something opposite to what it is? And that's a very long lesson to learn, to go through, to experience. I mean, I'm almost 3 years into my experiment, and that's still like a daily struggle. It's not something like a mental thing, like, oh, I just have to stop making my body want to do different things. Okay. Like, this is however long you've been living, this is something that you've been, I'm assuming the people who are listening to this are not babies. So babies are pretty much the ones that we got to start with. Give them a fresh start. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So if you're not a baby, then you have to, it's a practice. It's an actual practice. It's an experiment. And you have to enter it with a lot of grace, because there's going to be days when you're just over it. Real human design is not necessarily fun. It kind of, can slap you across the face sometimes, but it's also really, really worth it. It's not to like scare people out of it or into it. It's just, the real shit that is worth it can sometimes be a little hard to hear,
Absolutely. Well, and healing is not a very pleasant process in general.
No, it sounds really nice. Got a whole really pretty Instagram following, but like
exactly. Like, let's just sit in the car
like ugly crying and like there's a lot that goes into it. But yeah, I would just say, getting comfortable with yourself. If you're like self-projected, get comfortable speaking out loud.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of different modalities too out there that you can work with alongside human design. I pretty much look at everything now and I'm just like, why would I do that? Because I know that this is the reason this is this way from human design. Now I've gotten to the point where I'm just like, human design is pretty much my only lens. I don't really need to look at anything else, but you can look at other things, use different modalities to help remember, how your body actually is and what it feels like to actually listen to your authority. That's all this is. Strategy and authority is like the basic. Even people who've been it for 25 years are just like, wait, strategy and authority, that was a mental decision. Okay.
Exactly. Like, there's not going to be some magical time where we're fixed.
Nope.
It's going to be a journey, so it's fine. Like you said, and just be nice to yourself.
Yeah, definitely be nice. It's just helpful,
Exactly. And I'm glad you brought up the different modalities too, because I feel like, especially over the past year, I kind of went back and forth with human design. I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't want to just talk about human design, but it keeps drawing me in. But I love how it just resonates with so many other modalities too. And like, if that's what supports you, then do that. It's all about supporting you and creating your life.
We are all different. So
exactly.
You can't say only do this and everything's going to be fine for everybody who does that exact same thing. That's not true. That's like lesson number 1, differentiation. We're all unique beings.
Yes.
Nobody has the exact same design ever. Nobody. Twins, nobody.
No.
Down, even if you have the same channels, the same variable, the substructure of your human design goes incredibly deep. And that, there's millions of different variations of how a design could be. And the fact that you came out at the exact time that you did, whether you were late or premature or right on time, and the sun was where it was and Mars was where it was, it all happened exactly for a reason. And you will never have the same design as anybody else. And you're not meant to. You're not meant to see the same way or be motivated the same way or eat the same way or live the same way. You're designed to live exactly as you.
Yeah.
And that's all that human design tells you. I always think it's funny when people are like, is it a cult though? I'm like, what other cult is like, you're your own authority, don't listen to me?
Exactly. Exactly. Jesse and I were talking about this, Joyfully Human on Instagram.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah, because I asked her about this, and I always love her perspective. And she did some research, and so she said, the main thing is with a cult, eventually you get to a place where there's no way out. And in human design, nobody's trying to keep you here.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't even fit the description of a cult. And then even Ra himself would start lectures with, "Don't believe a word I say."
Yeah.
It's like, I literally don't care if you believe me. I just have to teach this now. Is basically the vibe I got.
Yeah, literally, like, I'm just getting this out of my body. So
Yes.
listen, don't listen. You're literally your own authority. Do what you want with it.
Yes.
I'm not promising anything. There's never a promise. There's never a guarantee. There's no do this and you'll, make $1 million in your business. It's none of that. It's just literally be your own authority.
Yes. Yes. Which is,
and don't make mental decisions.
Yeah. That one annoys me a lot as a mental projector. It still annoys me sometimes, though. I do get into bitterness because I'm like, why did you just give me that if I'm not supposed to use it for myself?
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, you of course are meant to be like the ultimate outer authority for everybody else. And then because you're a projector, you learn about yourself and what's good for you by learning about others. It's so ironic with projectors. And I saw somebody, I can't remember who, somebody else posted about this the other day. Projectors are the ones that are almost always talking about themselves and trying to learn about themselves and trying to, like, who am I and what do I need? This is useless. It's really hard to come to terms with, and I'm still not there. But I read somewhere that I can't remember who it was. Somebody likened being a projector as binoculars or like a flashlight. Like, you can't put them back on yourself. You can't look at binoculars at yourself. Like, that's not how they work. You're supposed to look at the other. And that's what projectors are designed for, completely, the other. And I know that sounds, especially to somebody new, they're sort of like, wait, what? Like, I'm not even here for myself. No, of course you're here for yourself. But especially if you're like an individual circuitry, but that goes a little bit deeper. But it's and it's really amazing when it actually happens to you. But when you can understand who you are by looking at the other person, by talking to them, by looking at their design, by giving them a reading, and you're like, oh,
yes.
That last one was for me too. Okay.
That happens to me all of the time. Yeah.
Yep. It's kind of hard, but like, it eventually happens and you're just like, I
get it. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Hence, I started a podcast where I get to just ask people a bunch of questions about how they live their design.
It's honestly the best. This is the mental projector plane. Honestly, it's just like, it's exactly what you need. It's perfect. Well, not need. I don't want to say need.
Well, so I gotta acknowledge how you say that so much and you call yourself out for it, because I've been realizing that for myself as well, how often I say need, and it's blowing me away. Like,
isn't it?
I understand.
It's interesting. I also have been trying to play with different words that hold the frequency of what I mean. Like, something like, I don't know, it's vital that I have this. Right? Or this is a necessity. Having money is a necessity for me to live, to be like, to survive, And obviously my level of survival is very different. Like, I live in a first world country. I live in America. I have a job. I get paid. It's also, I think it's important to say all of this human design stuff is incredible. The system is probably one of my most favorite things I've ever found. But if your actual needs, your survival needs are not met, you don't have food on your table, you don't have water, you don't have shelter, Like, this is not, you can't possibly expect your mind or your body to be able to submit to something like listen to your strategy and authority when you're trying. Like, don't be a projector who's homeless. Like, oh, I can't initiate asking somebody for a place to stay or a meal because I'm a projector. I have to wait to be invited. That's not the level that human design is at. There is an incredibly deep amount of privilege that comes with learning this system. Because if you're in the system, if you're learning it, obviously you have your Maslow's hierarchy of needs met, right? You have shelter, you have clean water, you have food on the table, you probably have a paycheck because you're buying books or listening to lectures or, you know? So that's also like to clarify that. So when we talk about something as necessity or having needs, like this is a very different level than like basic, you know, having shelter over your head need. But back to your point, yes. So the transference, for anyone who doesn't know, our fear motivation is a first line. It is in harmony, or it transfers to the fourth line, which in motivation is need. So that looks like me sitting here saying, oh gosh, like I need to do this podcast with you in order to be able to reach more people and have, you know, more success, book more readings. That's not the reason that I should be authentically driven to do this podcast. I'm doing this podcast with you because I don't know. Well, I mean, I feel very comfortable with you. Our magnetic monopoles honestly did all the talking here, but but when you transfer into need, basically, I think when you find yourself in comparison, that's really when it triggers a lot. Especially for me with need, you know, like, oh, I need to do this in order to find success. I need to do this in order to, you know, do XYZ or get something out of something, you know? So I'm very cautious with the word need because it's super easy to slip into transference. Like it can happen in 2 seconds.
Well, that's the thing that fascinates me is I just envision the line between alignment and transference is so thin because like you said, it flips so easily without even realizing it. Because it is interesting because we're in transference or distraction if you're in, you know, view, but if you think about it, in every other part of the chart, the 1 and the 4 are in harmony with one another, right? So they're naturally in harmony no matter what you do. It just so happens that when it occurs, that's why it's 2 sides of the same coin, right? Need and fear. They seem, you know, diametrically opposite, but actually it's so thin, so similar. Yes.
Yeah, that it is really hard that even when I'm sitting here, you know, just talking about being in fear motivation correctly, I can still find myself using the words need. That I'm just like, wait, I need to think about that again. So I just try and avoid the word need. And you can also be transferred, like projected onto, like somebody can project your transference onto you. You know, I have friends who will push me into my need. They'll say, oh, but you really should do this. You know, you have to do this so that you can build your following, or you have to do this because you need money, or you have to do this because, you know, XYZ. And I'm like, no, I don't have to do that. Like, I'm my own authority. So, you know, need is when you get into transference, that's when it's very much, you know, the non-self mental game.
It is. I've realized I experience it as an anxiety, and it feels deep in my open centers too. Like you were saying, like I need to do this so that I can get followers. You know, I need to do this so that I can prove whatever. So it's been very interesting to unpack and to realize how much of my life I made decisions out of need motivation because I was terrified. And then you got to do all the self-forgiveness work for that.
Yeah, I mean, look, human design is not for the faint of heart. you know, if you do this, it's, you know, it's for
But
real.
I've done so much healing work over the years too. And then with human design, I feel like it gave me a roadmap. Like they say, I got to visualize, I have the outer vision. So I got to visualize what's actually happening energetically. And that's what calms me so much. Like I can see then what's going on, and that it's mechanics. And it kind of, well, the taking things personally and the projections, it takes it all away. So yeah, it's interesting. Like there's been a couple times where I'll meet someone, and you know, we'll get to chatting or whatever, and I'll kind of feel, I'm like, wait, is there like a thing happening here? But then I'll like recently there was somebody, and I got to look up their chart, and I realized I have gate 6 as well, and they have the whole 659. And so it's like, oh yeah, no, it's just a thing.
It's true. It'll mess with you. I find that it really screws me with the transits sometimes. When 59 comes on, I'm just like, that's probably the one that I'm most aware of. I'm just like, okay, what's going on here?
What is happening?
What is happening? It's a pretty intense channel. Yeah.
But I wanted to talk about closed taste a little bit, because you're closed taste, I'm open taste, and so I'm just curious how you experience taste in general. I know you're experimenting a little bit more with that, and yeah, what have you learned through that process?
Yeah, so closed taste has been coming up a lot for me. It just sort of, it's one of those things where it keeps reappearing, like you need to look at this a little bit more. I'm like, okay. So I've been studying it a bit more recently, but I think what's interesting is how much, I don't know, permission, I guess, it's given me to just like literally be who I am. I could eat the same thing every single day. I could eat the same thing for 2 meals a day. I have literally watched a show or a movie again. Just I'll like watch a movie through and it's so good, I'll just watch it again. It's the point with the line too is it's all about boundaries, and closed taste and open, it's about setting the boundary. Where are you? Are you open? You don't have it set yet, or you're closed, you already have it set. You know what I mean? And there are a lot of times where I find that I just have the taste for the same thing repeatedly, over and over and over again. And I don't want anything else because my taste is only for that one thing. And it could be taste like actual food, or it could be the taste, like my taste for a show or a movie or a genre. I mean, I've just been reading all these books on Greek mythology, and I'm just like, now I'm out of my Greek mythology books and I want more. You know, it's like I am now, that is my taste. It's and there's always something that I am drawn to it for. I think there's a reason that my taste is for this specific genre or movie or food, whatever it may be. And I don't know that my spleen necessarily has much to say about it. Again, like my spleen's pretty quiet most of the time, unless I'm, you know, doing something that's putting myself in danger. At least for right now. I think I still need to build it up a bit, but yeah, I'm interested, I think, in seeing how it shows up with other people as well. So I'm trying to start a small group where we can kind of share experiences. How does it show up for you versus for me? You know, I have my spleen. Am I not following my closed taste because I really just don't trust my spleen, or I don't trust myself to make the decision because I don't want, you know, people to judge me for wanting to eat the same thing every single night. You know, it's interesting. It can kind of go a million different ways, even just food. Like we could probably talk about another hour just about close taste and food versus, because of course that variable refers to how you take in food, but also how you take in information. So it literally represents your physical brain. So it's how you nourish your brain through what you eat, or how the circumstances around how you eat, depending on, what specific determination you have, but also how you take in information. So it's very deep. There's so many different ways that it could go. And I think it's very similar to the need and fear, I think, closed taste versus open, especially there is available, to read about or to study about. It's like, they're open taste, like you do really well to have the same few recipes that you have on rotation. Closed taste, you can eat the same thing every single day. You're like, great. Okay, what else? Yeah. And I think there's a big hunger out there for people with, open and closed taste who are like, but what else? Which is why I literally just the other day put on my Instagram, like, would you guys be interested in a closed taste group where we just like kind of, open forum style chat and like share experiences and ask questions. Again, I'm a projector. It's really hard for me to like sit here and like talk about myself and my experience with it, I guess, because I don't really know. But when other people talk about it, I'm like, oh yeah, no, me too. Oh yeah, I get that too. Oh yeah. Oh, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. That's that kind of projector, binoculars moment where you're like, oh, I get it.
And I imagine for you with the 2 right arrows, it's even more so, because it's just kind of hanging out there until someone pulls it out. And with your line, oh my gosh, yeah, you have so much of it. We're like,
there's a lot that I really it's so interesting. I find myself, I'm one of like the most self-aware people. Like if I don't go to therapy, don't come at me. But if I did, I feel like I would sit in front of her and be like, okay, this is wrong, and this is wrong. I'm also dealing with this.
Yeah.
Where do we go? Like, what do we do now? They'd be like, oh. Usually it takes us a few sessions to just like say your name without crying. I don't know. So
I used to go to therapy fairly frequently, but it was always so interesting to me because it was years before I discovered human design. And there was always this point where it's like, I could feel the shift inside myself. Like I would therapize myself, which makes sense as a mental projector, right? Like I'm in that room. And then I remember a few times I found a therapist because I thought I just need to be able to talk to someone who's not going to judge me. I just needed a safe soundboard is all I needed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's crazy. Like I'm a big proponent of it, but I haven't been in a long time. So do whatever you need to do.
Yeah, exactly. That's the moral of the story. It's funny that you say that. I literally say that I self-therapize. Like if there's something wrong, like I just
1-8, yeah.
I don't know. It's weird. There is such a strong level of self-awareness in that regard. Like, what do I need in this moment? Like, what can my in my mind, what can I do to like soothe this or help it? Or, I do like tapping and stuff if I need to.
Love tapping, yeah.
But, so good. But yeah, but then there's parts of myself and I'm like, when you ask me like my experience with closed taste, I was like, oh no, I don't actually know.
Well, I mean,
it's so strange.
I don't really know how to talk about open taste. I'm still figuring out. I'm glad to hear that other people are a little confused by this one because I've experienced the same thing. I've been looking through source material and it's like exactly what you said. Like you can have a few things, like, but what does that mean?
Yeah, I wish that Raw actually had open or closed taste. I can't remember what he had. Oh no, he was fourth color, I believe, which is low. I think he's low determination. He likes like quiet, like
yeah.
peace and quiet. Like he doesn't want anything happening anywhere near him.
Okay, so that brings,
which sounds a lot like,
right?
like of course you would be just like eating in silence in like a dark room. Not to like make fun of anybody that is on here listening and you have fourth color. I don't mean it that way, but I imagine Ra being like kind of a grumpy dude eating, just be like silence, you know?
Yeah, leave me alone.
Yeah,
I appreciate
literally.
his rawness. I just realized that goes two ways, like his rawness, but then raw, raw. He's like just who he is. Like that's what I appreciate. It's like that ego manifesterness of like, this is who I am. This is what's happening. Take it or don't. I don't care.
Yeah. And maybe that is why it just feels like it goes so well together, because he was so like abrupt that I can just imagine him just being like, I just need silence.
Yeah. Like it's time for me to eat. See you later. And just,
yeah.
I can see that too.
Honestly. So yeah, so yeah, determination is interesting. And I think it's, it's the first one. If you look at the four variable, they go in a certain order. And it starts on the body side. It starts with determination, goes to environment, goes then over to the personality side to view, and then up to motivation. So technically, the idea is that you can't really ever meet the other three correctly as you're designed until you nourish your brain properly, correctly. So yeah, it's interesting. I'm excited about this group. I mean, I haven't done anything yet. I literally just today was like, oh, so I guess this is happening. gotta start working, gotta figure out some dates. But I'm excited to see, how I think there's a lot more human design work, classes, teaching done in the Penta, like a small group of 5 or 6 people, versus just like lecture style. I'm just going to talk to the 30 people that signed up for my class. Not that there's something wrong with either of them. I'm personally drawn more, I think, to the, Penta size, just because, I'm narrow valleys. I like being more intimate. I prefer it, honestly, one-on-one. This is my favorite, because I'm like, my attention isn't anywhere else. Like sometimes it drifts to my dog because he moves, but otherwise I'm just like, no, this is it. Yeah. So when there's other people, I'm sort of like, I get a little bit hesitant, because I'm like, well, now I can't hear. And then it's like a flashlight. Just like, who do I focus on? It's a little, I mean, Ra makes a joke, but he's like, anytime you put a projector with 2 people, like the other person's screwed, because the projector is going to have their attention on one person, and that's it. So plus narrow values is a little, I think it's just like added pressure.
Added to that, yes. I know. It's fascinating though, because I find I really enjoy leading a group.
Oh, you do?
I kind of love it, yeah. But I also have, like, I'm just kind of a teacher at heart. I'm not sure exactly where else that goes. Maybe the 1156 just wants to talk about stuff. But when my first program was a group thing, and I had 5 women, and I had another group with 5 women, and then I've done a bunch of one-on-one. And I think maybe it depends on the specific aspects of the program, but healing wise, I think it's more powerful in a group, because you can hear other people's stories, and then something about knowing you're not alone in your journey, even though you have a different design, or all these different things. Like there's basic things that humans struggle with, and I think to know that somebody else is going through something just like you, or at least very similar, helps you to understand that you're not insane and you're not a terrible person, and that can help the healing so much more. So that's why I like the group thing, because I can tell you, like, and this is because this has happened to me so much, where a client will get nervous about something and I can tell you that that's normal, but you're not going to believe me. But if 5 other women are nodding at you like, oh yeah, I've totally done that, then
it's true. I think it definitely it's a bit more open. You don't feel the same kind of like pressure or even judgment, maybe, because there's other women there. Especially, I think it's really beneficial for projectors to be in groups, because there's just that many more people that you can learn about your own self, your own design through. Even if like you have a defined G and you are listening to somebody and theirs is completely wide open and you're like, oh my God, I relate so much in such a different way because you're just putting into context all of my own experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes, you know, even if they're, you know, a generator or an MG or whatever, you know, I think it can be really interesting for projectors specifically to learn in groups versus one-on-one. I love one-on-one, and I have only actually done one-on-one work with human design, like not in, you know, if I'm outside of work, just like chatting human design with friends, I've done that, but
Yeah.
it's very different when you have reciprocated human design nerdiness,
Yeah, yes.
you know, versus just like projectile vomiting human design to non-human designers.
Yeah,
It's a different vibe
they
for
don't
sure.
appreciate it as much. I love nerding out with people on this thing. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm always so
Yeah.
grateful to the people who are willing to nerd out with me. And yeah, it's making more sense though when you bring out that projectors need to understand themselves through other people, which I knew is just like hitting me even harder at this moment. Like,
Yeah, when you're actually like doing it, you're like, oh, okay, I get it.
Literally what I'm doing right now. Like,
you're just like, oh, okay, I see. Yeah, it's interesting. So we'll see, I guess, kind of where that leads. I don't know.
yeah, I hope I get to chat with a whole bunch of people. My big overall intention is really, again, it's the stories, kind of like what I just said with the groups. Like, you can relate to people hearing them share their experience, and then to externalize your experiment. I've noticed people starting to do that more and more. They'll get on and talk about, especially Sam Zager, she does it so beautifully, right? And so I thought, okay, if I can just draw those experiences out of people, then it will help so many other people. And maybe it's projectorness too, where I feel like if I ask you about your experience with the splenic authority, then that's so much more beneficial to someone with a splenic authority than me telling them, well, here's what I've read about it. Like, I don't have a splenic authority. Yeah. But here's what I've read and here's what other people have told me.
Yeah.
Or I could say, go check out these episodes with these splenic authority people, you know, or even anything else, like how you have the G center defined, like experience. And yeah, I just want to help people unpack their own design a little bit more too.
Yeah, I think it's obviously we all only have the definition that we have. So it's not possible for me to be able to tell you about every single aspect of your design because I don't have personal lived experience. I can tell you what I have learned about it through studying, and I always do try and preface that. Like, I can give you my firsthand account of this and this and this and this, you know, splenic authority and inner vision and closed taste. Well, I didn't do a great job today, but you know, I can speak on those things from a very personal understanding of my lived experience. But emotional authority, I can tell you, you know, what I've read about it, what I've learned from, you know, source material about it. But you know, you should really go check out, you know, these projectors because you're an emotional projector. You should check out these other emotional projectors and listen to them explain their emotional authority, their experience, because also they might have emotional authority, but not your specific channel. So they have a different wave than you. Right. So, you know, there's, even if somebody, you know, with splenic authority, they could have like 8 channels. Well, are there even 8 channels? I think, no, 7. Anyways, yeah. You know, they could have a fully defined or, you know, have 3 versus just 1. It's a different feeling. No, please go ahead.
No, I totally forgot about the whole integration thing because 57, you know, can connect to like 3 different things. And so, yeah,
see, I think 57 could also be my other bridge, but I don't count it as a bridge because I have the 10, but I'm like, the 10 sort of feels like something waving in the wind. It could go 3 different ways. Yeah.
And I have the 20. So
I don't feel as much pressure. Oh, perfect.
Yes.
Yeah, I think. All right. So we've got a lot. You're bridging. Plus I'm fully defined today with this with the program. So I'm just like, I'm feeling a lot better than I did last weekend when I I was like in my 8-1 melancholy and my bridge was not being, filled in with the transits. The transits are fun sometimes.
Yeah, it's
probably gonna pay for it, but
a wild ride. I know some people are on the 36-35 train for the next couple of years now. So
yeah, I saw that. I don't think that Luke, don't bark. Sorry, my dog is about to freak out. Excuse him.
That's okay. So with the transits, it's just so fascinating how we can experience different aspects of the chart and lean into it. And so that's a way you can kind of secondhand experience things that you don't have and get to know that aspect. Like 2343 is real, it's lit up right now. And so a lot of people are understanding what it's like to have that ajna defined to the throat. And some people are like, oh, there's so much pressure to think. And I'm like, this is my life. I'm feeling great. So
no, absolutely. It's a trip. Sorry, he's going to get Luke. Stop. He doesn't want me to talk. Apparently I'm not supposed to talk about transits. Luke. It's interesting because like right now I have my sacral defined and I feel like I haven't done anything today. I've done a lot. Well, solar projector, not that much, but I don't feel any. I'm like, it's 8:20. Usually I'm like thinking about finishing up a show or getting ready to, start like winding down, taking off my makeup and like, reading in bed for a little bit. And I'm like, I could go for like another hour. I'm fine. Like I've also got my emotional centers. I'm like, I've got a lot of energy right now, even though it's not mine.
yeah.
So I have to be careful because tomorrow I could be really burnt out. So I'm probably still gonna, slowly read in bed before, before I totally burn out. But it is interesting how you can, experience the different centers without actually fully understanding. Like I have an emotional center, but I told you today, I was like, hey, let's do the call.
Yeah.
I'm still a splenic projector. I'm not designed, I'm not here to be like, okay, but today I have my emotional center defined. So I should really take some time before no, my authority is splenic. It's splenic no matter what's happening. But it's definitely interesting. It's nice to feel the buzz of energy. Let's be honest about that.
Totally.
Like I only have 4 centers normally, so this is great. I don't feel any like mental pressure. I'm just like, let's just do the thing,
That's good. And I'm just realizing too how funny it is how our authorities played out this whole process, because you're like, okay, let's do it. And I'm like, I don't know. But then once I tapped in your energy, I was like, oh no, wait, okay, now I'm good.
And I'm like, hey, if you want to push it, we can push it. But like, I'm ready if you want. And you're like, let's do a little soundboarding first.
Yeah.
Let's just like chat for a minute. Okay, let's chat. And then okay.
About this. Okay, now I'm good. Yeah.
Honestly, that's why I love human design so much, especially with this kind of stuff, is everybody's so understanding.
Yeah.
Like it's my favorite. I see people like making jokes about waiting for Brayton. Like they'll do they'll have like a reading. People are like, I've been waiting 2 hours, but it's worth it. But I'm like, because he has emotional authority, and everybody's like, so I'm so happy to wait because, like that guy he's incredible knowledge to share.
Gosh. What comes out?
I'm so excited. I signed up for his projector immersion starting at the end of the month, and I'm very excited.
Oh, that's awesome.
I wanted to do it for I think he said like 3 rounds of it, and I wanted to do every single one, but like every time I went to do it, it was like, no, it's not right.
Mm-hmm.
And then this time he had like a little wait list and everything. So I got the email. I was like, boom, done. Okay, signing up. I was like, that's a full blown yes. Okay, I'm excited about this. So yeah, if you don't know who he is, he's an emotional projector, and he's got all individual circuitry, and he's a force to be reckoned with. And I'm
right? So
very, yeah, quadrate. I'm very excited to learn from him. So
yes, he's on my dream list to interview. I gotta
yeah,
probably got to get a little momentum going on this podcast, and then I'll hit up some of the big wigs.
yeah, he'd be pretty amazing to interview. Yeah, I'm very excited about the different, and not even just projectors, but I'm just very aware of the projectors because I am one, about like the quality of projector and projector insights that are out there now. You know,
Yeah.
I think there's still a lot out there that's very kind of fluffy, I like to call it. I'm more into like the tell me when you're bitter and melancholy. You know, like I like to know like what's going on, even when it's not pretty. And I know that sometimes that can be a little too intense for some people, but it's very exciting to see like the level of depth that people are going, and also that some people are also taking it to, you know, another level where they're recognizing themselves and, you know, charging to be close friends on stories. I think that's incredible. I love that, you know, because it can be a little disheartening to be a projector on here and hear all of this stuff about like, you don't work for free, but then all we're doing is like pumping out posts that are just for free. And you're like, well, this is not, this is why I had to get a job. So.
Yes. And I feel like, well, I've realized that I've been in transference for a while, so I understand now why I wasn't getting very much recognition, but it was very disheartening. Like I felt like I was working really hard, and at the time I was as authentic as I could be, but it's like wasn't getting me anywhere. And yes, it's very frustrating as a projector. Like, do you not see all this wisdom? Come on, guys.
It's hard. It's very hard, especially to play the, you know, the Instagram game, which is, you know, just pumping out content all the time. You know,
I don't have the energy for it personally.
No. I mean, I'm on like once a month. I'm really not on that often. I'll like creep on people's posts, you know, or like I basically just watch, I go in to watch people's videos, like when they go live and like they have the recording saved. That's what I'm for more than anything else.
Yeah, there's people that I love to listen to for sure. But yeah, I'm figuring out what exactly I want to do with that, because I have a whole bunch just like hiding out in Canva and, you know, written in Google Docs because I'm processing stuff. And I think I just got stuck in my head and like what I needed to do, right? Where it's like, okay, but I shouldn't give it all away for free. So then I should charge something. But like, you know, I mean, I just got past 700 followers. Like, I don't really have a loyal following yet because I was kind of all over the place. So like, who's going to pay anyway? Then, you know, the whole mental
trip, it's real. It makes you go back and forth. All your undefined centers feel like chiming in about, you know,
I know the line's like, just throw it out there, see what happens, it'll be fine. And the one line's like, no, we got to know exactly the correct way to do it.
Oh my God, yeah. No, honestly, it's intense. And then there is, you know, that fear motivation where you're like, but is this right?
Yeah.
Like there is a different vibe between like the undefined head ajna, which is like, you know, is this correct? Like grabbing onto random things versus like, you know, the fear, it's like, it's always asking questions. If it's not asking questions, then you're probably in transference because you're just like, oh, it's fine, I just need to do this. Like fear, it's like, no, please wait. Like, did you spell this correctly even? Like, did you capitalize his name? Like, it's funny.
Yes.
I can tell when it's my fear motivation versus like just an undefined center trying to like, you know, make me not feel like I can post something. It's so funny how they all have different voices, and you really learn the difference between like your actual definition, whether it's a channel or a center, versus something that's, you know, undefined, or a channel or a gate that you have in an undefined center. So when you have a gate in an undefined center, it just means you don't have that energy of the center, but all of it is funneled. All of the voices are funneled through that, that one little gate that you got.
Yes. So kind
a
of
little intense sometimes.
Yeah. And that's what's interesting too, is the energetics of the gate, if it's on an undefined center or if it's in a defined center and all of that. Like my conscious sun is 47, which is in the Ajna. And so that's what really helped me transition to the whole teacher aspect. I keep looking at my chart like, oh, I really am just here to transmute information and share it. That's it. Which is all I've ever wanted to do, in all honesty. I've only ever wanted to just get like 4 PhDs and teach things. So I'm like, okay, that's what I'm doing then. We're living the dream. But I had so much insecurity about it in the past. Like, oh, that's really boring. Why would that be a dream job? Surely I need to do something else. But I don't even care anymore.
I know that's what human design does. It's like, whatever. Yeah. Honestly. That's just my not self. Don't listen to her.
I'm just surrendering to the mechanics.
True. I mean, honestly, that's the end of the day. When like that's what we're doing.
Yeah. That whole surrender aspect, it's so fascinating to me. Like, okay, it really is a surrender. Like, let's just be with it and flow.
Yep. Just watch it. Just watch it all play out. It's funny. I listened to somebody, I don't know if it was one of Ra's lectures, but they were like, just go out and if you're emotional, make an emotional decision. Don't, make a mental decision, whatever. Just do what you're not supposed to do. And that's how you're going to learn.
Yeah. Then observe what happens after. How does it feel in your body? What were the consequences of that decision? You learn so much when you do that.
You learn more by screwing up. I mean, I joke on my Instagram that I like call myself out when I like make mistakes or like, because I'm like also insecure that somebody else is going to do it. But I'm also like, but it's part of my experiment that I was in transference for like the past 18 months. My bad.
Well, and that's wisdom, right? That's the beauty of the 3 line. Like, oh, here's all the things I just did wrong, guys. Just wanted you to know so you can learn a little faster.
Yeah, seriously. I know it's funny. I wrote today, like I've just realized I'm still in the mental game of trying to perfect something, and I have a lot of definition in my chart that's about, it's part of the logic, circuitry of sharing, and it's about seeing and finding patterns, right? And part of me is also like, but that means that the pattern can be perfected. And I'm like, no. You cannot perfect human design. That's not the point. Like avoiding bitterness isn't the point, because bitterness is there for a very specific reason. You're going to fall into transference and distraction, and you're not self and all of it. You're going to, that it's there for a reason, so that you can be like, oh, okay, just kidding. Okay, I made the mental decision. It was wrong. I see this now, blah, blah, blah. Okay. You don't have to do anything. You're just, okay. I saw it. It happened. All right, moving on. Like that's all it is. It's an experiment, and you can't even perfect an experiment.
No, never.
Right? There's a formula to it, but
there's always going to be something to tweak a little bit more and a little bit more.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. I mean, if you've perfected it, then you're probably at the end of your lifeline, because you can't perfect life.
No. I used to say that even years ago. I'm like, okay, if you've figured stuff out, then you're dead, because you can't. That's not what we're here to do. Like,
I mean, life is messy. God, like it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And that includes, making mental decisions and emotional decisions and going into your not self and all of it. It's all there. It's all messy. It's for a reason. It's not going to be this perfect little, organized formula, even though that's, my dream love language, but that's not what it is.
You tried to make that bubble.
Yeah. So you just got to go with it. And, it's an experiment. If you screw up, you didn't even screw up. It's not even a screw up. No. It's just you just living your life, and then being able to be aware of it and to witness it, and then be like, okay, moving on. Where's my spleen? How does it feel? How does it sound? Okay. And then you start to be like, oh, that's the voice of my undefined sacral. Okay. That's what she sounds like. Okay, great. Oh, that's my solar plexus. Oh, that's my heart. Okay. She's a little bit mean. Okay, got it. So they all have voices, and you really get to learn how they speak, especially if you're split or, triple or a quad. Because then your centers, like you're single, right? Because you only have your ajna in your throat. And so I have my spleen and root, but then also, and which is unconscious, like we talked about earlier, and then my throat to G.
Yes.
So that's conscious. I also feel I can hear it more, but I can actually sit in a moment and witness both of them having, like, even saying the same thing, but like not at the same time. It's almost like feedback.
Interesting.
You're just like, oh, wait. Like you guys are on the same page, but like I'm a little bit confused. What's going on? I didn't hear what the other one said. So it's interesting when that happens. And you'll definitely learn, even single. I mean, you hear all the different voices of your undefined centers
all the time.
It's interesting when you get there and you hear what they actually sound like. Oh, that's the characteristic they carry, or this one yells. Like,
yeah.
So yeah, it sounds not fun, but it's fun, like, to be able to just like watch it, be aware of it. Like, that's the whole point. It's all of this is just that you can bring awareness to it and just watch it happen.
Yeah. Have you read that book, The Untethered Soul, by Michael?
No. Oh my God. I've had so many people tell me about it. I bought it once. I read like the first page. I was just like, meh, and never. But everybody keeps telling me about it, or to read it, or have you read it? So anyways, sorry. No, I've not read it.
Maybe it's
please share your
point. But it just, I mean, one line, so I've read a lot, but it just fascinates me how things overlap, and so Ra would always talk about, like, you're the passenger, like, you're not in control here. And that's what Untethered Soul is all about. Like, he just had this epiphany of like, oh, there's just this voice in my head that talks about stuff, but I don't have to listen to it. Like, that's not who I am. And so it's just his journey of uncovering that. And
maybe I should read that.
So yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because it's his real life experience, and it was like in the 70s, so yeah, I just love how things overlap like that. And that's where I find bits of truth, is when I see it from like 3 or 4 different places, and they're all saying the same thing, just maybe in a little more different, nuanced way. Okay, yeah, we're the passenger. We're chilling.
Yep. We're just literally here for the ride.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, I love human design. I mean, we could talk for 4 more hours, but
I know.
I don't know if anybody wants to listen for 4 more hours. Just talk about our mean undefined hearts.
We'll just have to do another episode. Like, I think I'm just gonna have everybody, I'm gonna chat to everybody like 3 or 4 times, because I still have so many questions. Like, we didn't talk about split definition and all these things. And then like, your Instagram is so beautiful, by the way, so people go look at your
thank you.
So yeah, there's so much to unpack, but I just wanted to thank you again for spending this time with me, nerding out on this stuff and sharing your experience. And I just know that it will help other people unpack their design and to love themselves deeper, which is such a beautiful thing. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me again. It's been fun nerding out. I like nerding out with people.
Yes, it's my favorite thing. Absolutely.
Yep.
So tell us where we can find you and if you have any programs you want to talk about or any of that.
Sure. So my Instagram is at the Balanced Projector, though I don't claim to have mastered the whole balance thing, so don't ask me. And my website is nataliebydesign.com. And I do have, I don't know when this will come out, I do have a closed taste small pentagroup coming out, but I don't know when yet, so it might be applicable. Depending on how it goes, we might do more rounds of it, so hopefully you'll be around to join those. But otherwise, yeah, if you know, take a look at my posts, my bits, and always feel free to reach out, ask questions. I don't have all the answers. I don't claim to, but you know, we can have fun experimenting together. So
I love that. Okay, well, thank you so very much. And I'm sure we will talk more soon.
I'm sure we will.